Does a day go by now when Doctor Who doesn't crop up in some way or form?
Not this year.
No.
It's been quite an extraordinary year. It's almost as if I've sort of taken a year off from everything else. I've just been working on all things to do with Doctor Who 50th anniversary, like the entire year.
Yeah.
Not a day goes by without me making about 10 phone calls that are all to do with Doctor Who in some shape or form, which is fairly extraordinary.
But it must be pleasing as well. So you seem very much back in the bosom of Doctor Who anyway.
I never felt like I never had a moment where I turned my back on Doctor Who, really. I mean, I just did, mostly because I didn't think I needed to. I managed, when I left, I got a job fairly quickly afterwards. It didn't seem to affect, people offering me jobs. So I was always very happy to be involved with whatever was going on. And I think it's the only way, actually, you can conduct your life. You can't really, if you hide from it, you can find yourself locked in a cupboard for 15 years or the rest of your life. So you really have to kind of embrace it.
And people get annoyed by that as well, don't they, when actors don't want to talk about something?
I think they do, and probably rightly, because it is part of what you've done, and that's what, if you just have to put yourself in the position, I think, of the viewer, which is what I try to do, and think how I would feel if I'd gone along to see someone from a series I'd loved and they just went, oh, nothing to do with it. So, and I grew up watching Doctor Who, so in a way I can kind of almost see it from that point of view. But as I say, I don't think you can turn your back on it, and the fans actually are not. They're not kind of intrusive. You lot are far more intrusive. But I've never had a fan hanging around outside my house. Right. They just don't. If you're appearing somewhere, they come along and they will queue up and they will ask you questions and they'll love sort of being around you. But apart from that, I think they're very sort of understanding. So I definitely don't have a problem conducting my life. Get on a bus. Somebody said, I said I was getting on the bus the other day, and someone said, "You still go on the bus?" I said, "I've got my freedom pass." Of course I go on the bus.
One of the differences between your era, Doctor Who, and the current era is the Doctor's a bit more of a romantic era.
Yes.
He manages to, for one point, we'd call his companions rather a lot.
Yes.
Well, what's your view on that? Is it something that works for the show, do you think, or...?
I think as long as it's a kind of whistle or just a flirtation, that's absolutely fine. If you started sort of going off into rooms in the TARDIS and who knows what went on, I think that would be too much. I'm slightly envious of it because in my time I noticeably wasn't allowed to put my arm around female companions, only the male companion, strangely. Because the producer was terribly afraid people might think there was hanky-panky going on in the TARDIS. So I'm slightly envious of his sort of romantic nature. I think it was rather held back in my time.
A couple of years ago, Stephen Fry was talking about Doctor Who, or someone asked him about it. He said it, he sort of dismissed it as just a children's show. I mean, did you agree with any of that? Do we make
No,
too much of it?
It could have been because I think he'd written the script and it wasn't accepted, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not passing any judgment on that. No, I think obviously there is a huge appeal to children, but when you go along to these conventions or an appearance or a signing here and there, it's not just children who are there. It's something which has stayed with people, and that's the part of the brilliance of Doctor Who, and part of the extraordinary thing of science fiction is that it seems to grab people when they're younger, when they're growing up in formative years, and stick with them. I mean, there are so many Doctor Who fans who are either out there or indeed sort of in the closet, haven't really come, and are coming out quite a lot this year actually, who are just huge fans of the programme, and of course ultimately they are now running the show. It's the people who grew up watching Doctor Who who are writing it, directing it, producing it, and indeed in it. So I don't know, it's not just a children's show. It certainly appeals to children, but there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. So I think he's just might be just feeling a bit unhappy.
What was your reaction to Peter Capaldi being cast? And if you would deign to give him any advice, is there anything you would say to him?
I don't. I wouldn't never dare to give him any advice about how to play the part. He can cope with that brilliantly. I suppose all I'd say to him is what I mentioned earlier: is don't think because you're now the Doctor, and it must be daunting because I know that David Tennant had a much harder time of it in terms of just everywhere he went, he would cause a great stir and consternation. But you don't run and hide from it. That's all. You have to kind of embrace it. That doesn't mean to say you have to do everything you're asked to do or always be sort of on duty. But you just have to accept it's part of you, and then you can live a quite an ordinary life, really. Well,
And
sort of ordinary.
He's seen as a very doctory sort of an actor. People feel.
Well, he's another. His famous thing of him writing a letter to the Guardian when he was sort of 14 or something, congratulating the BBC on their most recent season of Doctor Who. So he's yet another fan, and I know that he's very, very excited. I said to Stephen, how's it going with it? He said, I've congratulated him on the choice of Peter Capaldi because I do think it's a great choice. And he said, it was just such a thrill to make someone so happy. No, I do think she's a great choice. When Dr. Lee announces he's leaving, inevitably these names keep coming up, and almost invariably I sit there and go, oh no, this can't be true, because then you will announce. Some of you here at the table, or at least your papers will announce, this is definitely the Doctor. It's confirmed. And it isn't, because it hasn't come from the Doctor Who office. But I think for the most part, not absolutely across the board, for the most part, you just go, no. And when I heard, when the Peter Capaldi rumour first emerged, which was only a couple of days before it was announced, I just remember thinking, now if that was true, it would be absolutely a great choice. So
to what extent do you identify yourself with the role of Doctor?
Not quite as good as he is. I suppose you like to think you bring a little of yourself to any role. I don't have any pretensions about saving the world every being sort of quite that powerful or caring. But you bring a bit of yourself to it. How you would like the Doctor to be, I suppose. How you would like in an ideal world to be, if other influences didn't distract you from being an ultimately good person. I would like to be like the Doctor.
The characteristics and the personality quirks and even the accessories of the current Doctors are very carefully built. How much of a free hand did you guys have?
I had no influence apart from the sort of wheedling actor influence, really. You just come up and go, can I do this? How can I do this? And they could always put a stop to it. So if I could get away with something, I could get away with it. I like the idea of we lost the sonic screwdriver because it just seemed to be an answer to everything. As indeed it is a bit now. You point the sonic screwdriver at anything and it either unlocks, explodes, disappears, or something else. So we got rid of it, and the idea was that my Doctor would just get by with a cricket ball and a piece of string, which is in his pocket. And I rather like that idea.
Why do you think it's been such a success all over the world?
It's a different. I suppose in Britain it's a very British, at least how we like to view ourselves,
yes.
Very British superhero, and I think that kind of character, essentially, with the intention of being non-violent,
yes.
I think an almost gentlemanly approach
yes.
to defeating aliens is rather appealing, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think that's probably the secret of it. It's not an American. I don't mind American superheroes, but it's not an American superhero. He has a different approach to things.
With a cricket ball, as you say.
Yeah, certainly in my case. So I think that's probably the appeal of it. It's just something different, and that's what the Americans love about it.
Yes.
And that's why I always used to fight against the idea that if you Americanize it, you make it more popular in America. In fact, the opposite was true. I remember we had a heated discussion, always friendly, of course, with John Nathan Turner about his idea of bringing in an American companion. It actually turned out not to be an American, so it really wasn't a very good idea. But his idea was if you bring in an American companion, it would make the show more popular in America. And I said, well, no, actually the opposite is true. What they used to like about it was the Britishness of it, even down to the rather dodgy sets. They used to love it. They used to love it. They just used to appeal to them after the sort of...
Are there some things you can't change with Doctor Who? You know, does it always have to be a man? Can the TARDIS change? I mean, how far can you go with it now?
Well, I personally, and I probably get into trouble for saying this, I think it sort of has to be a man. I've never understood the idea that there is one gender on Gallifrey. As far as I'm aware, it works the same way as Earth does. You know, there are male and females. So if you suddenly make the Doctor a woman, you've effectively just said, well, let's give you a sex change. And I just don't think that kind of works. As I said before, but I'm very happy for there to be a female Time Lord. In fact, I think my daughter is one, and she's shooting around the universe now. So if they want to bring her back as a female Time Lord, that's a great idea. But to me, it would be a rather odd thing. I mean, he just happens to be, in this case, a man. To have a female Time Lord would be kind of like having a female James Bond.
Do you think the character is up there with James Bond, Sherlock Holmes, in terms of enduring? Do you think it will always be part of fiction now, in one way or another?
It'll certainly be part of that genre of fiction. I always think in terms of novels or books, but yeah, I think absolutely it's iconic in that same way that James Bond is.
The same stature.
Yes, I think so. I think it does.
Other than yourself, obviously, who's your favourite? Other than Doctor Number 5, who's your favourite Doctor?
My favourite Doctor was always Patrick Troughton. He was my Doctor growing up. I think nearly every time that's what people go back to. He's the Doctor they grew up with. I loved the more recent Doctors. I thought David Tennant did a fantastic job, and Matt Smith. But I think that Patrick Troughton would have to be my favourite.
So you must be very excited that the
I
Troughton story.
am indeed
I know.
very excited by that, and I checked out online this morning just to see what the quality of the video was, and it seems to be very good. Actually, it looked pretty good. So I want to see it. Really.
Who would you like to see as Doctor? Obviously, Peter's only come in now, so not saying anything about him, but who would you like to see, if anyone?
See, this is why I prefer to forget which interview I've said this in. Because I said this in the last interview, I think it was. An actor who I always thought would make a great Doctor was David Warner. I just thought he had that fantastic edge to his acting. Probably now he probably would be, he'd probably start and she's tired for now. When it was announced it was coming back, every interview I was asked him, I think she's David Doctor, I always said David Warner.
He's playing William Hartnell, isn't he, in the Adventures of Time?
No,
David Bradley.
No, that's
I'm
David
sorry,
Bradley.
I'm completely. I'm going to disappear now.
Well, can I ask you then, my Doctor Who magazine question, which is inevitable, they've got their big 50th anniversary issue coming out and they're trying to get messages from all the Doctors for their readers. So what would your message be for their readers?
Oh, what's that thing I was made to say yesterday? Keep it free or something? I mean, I did this in
Save the day.
Save the day. Save the day.
But if you've got something more personal for the readers that
Oh, I see. I would say about the 50th anniversary. I would say,
and about the magazine as well.
I would say that I think everyone, and I put myself actually quite high up on this list of people who've been working very hard all this year to give people make this special for them. So I'm hoping that they'll enjoy everything we have to offer them on the 23rd of November.
And does it mean something to you, this kind of, people have kept this sort of fidelity and enthusiasm for so many years?
Do you know, it really does. I know this is going to sound like I'm just sucking up to the fans a bit, but the fact of the matter is that the fans of the hardcore fans of Doctor Who is what kept it alive all through those years when it was off the air. And when it went off the air, don't forget, not because really the viewing figures dropped off, it really went off the air because the powers that be up there at the time, the BBC, didn't want it on the air. They wanted to get rid of it. They didn't like it. And I think nothing annoyed them more than when it came back, especially as one particular person was actually there when it came back. Came back actually as probably the most prestigious BBC programme that was on air at that time, and it still is, in fact, the most prestigious BBC programme. So, the fans, not least, of course, a couple of the biggest fans then produced, Russell T Davies produced the first series. Stephen Moffat, you couldn't find a bigger Doctor Who fan when he was growing up than Stephen Moffat, and he's now the head writer and producer. So it really is down to the fans in whatever contribution they made who kept the program and the idea of the program alive. So that's really been. It has. What I've tried to do this year is to do something just as payback, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as payback.
Yeah.
I just think, as I say, they are actually really very, very respectful of, you can attend these things. They don't hassle you. And they want to talk to you. But they're actually, great. I really admire them.
Why do you think it has lasted so long, and it's still, as you say, one of the most prestigious programmes on the network?
Well, I think obviously there are obvious things like the fact that they came up with a brilliant notion of regeneration, which meant that you couldn't, you didn't have to have one actor playing the same part for 50 years. I think that probably the biggest factor is this idea that it now almost regenerates itself. The fact that it inspires a lot of people to want to become writers or directors or in some way be involved in the business. And they've come out of the closet big time this year. Because they're out there, I remember years ago I did an episode of a Harry Hill show. The last episode in the series of a Harry Hill show. And then we went to the party afterwards, and the sort of gift from the production to him was a Dalek. So they're out there, Frank Skinner, people like that, they're huge fans of Doctor Who, and I think that's what's made it, that's what has made it so successful now. It's self-perpetuating, it's self-regenerating. You get the writers there, and they're probably more waiting in the wings. You've started watching since 2005, and are out there waiting for their chance to write a story.
Lovely, thank you.
Sorry.
Just one last question, then we'll wrap it
What
up.
is the appeal of the typical hero-villain plot? Do you think there's something within human nature which makes us addicted to this theme?
I think absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have. In the case of the Doctor, certainly when it comes to the Master, I suppose is the perfect villain. It's almost like a love-hate relationship, isn't it? It's something he can't bear actually to do away with the Master. It's sort of almost one dark side of him. It's almost like you're fighting with yourself. I think it's just something nice about that. We all love that sort of thing. Well, I'm saying we all love it. I think it's probably a thing that appeals to males more than females. You're probably far more mature about these things. But we like nothing better than defeating a good villain.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.